Hello and welcome back to our regular report on the European Parliament plenary sessions. At this first session of the new legislative term, former Polish Prime Minister Jerzy Buzek was officially elected President of the European Parliament. His election was both politically and historically symbolic. He is the first MEP from one of the former communist member states to be elected to a top EU post. And this on the 14th of July, when the French celebrate Bastille Day.
2 centuries after the French Revolution that took Europe out of the Dark Ages and gave rise to the values of liberty, equality and fraternity, Jerzy Buzek fought for these same ideals as a member of the Polish Solidarność movement that overturned the communist regime in Poland in 1989. Elected on the 30th anniversary of the first direct elections to the European Parliament, Jerzy Buzek received the support not only of the Social Democrats and the Liberals, but also from other MEPs, getting 555 out of 644 valid votes. In his first speech in the chamber, the new president thanked all MEPs and promised to continue working to promote European integration.
Thank you for electing me President of the European Parliament. For me, it is both an enormous challenge and a great honor. Thank you for those who have voted for me. I will do everything not to disappoint your trust. For those of you who did not vote for me, I will try to convince you to me. I wish to work with all of you, regardless of political convictions.
He also had a special word for 2 members who'd withdrawn their own candidacies in order to help ensure his election with the highest possible support.
2 of our colleagues, Mario Mauro and Graham Watson, who stood as candidates, resigned earlier in order to strengthen the unity of our House. This was a profound gesture. Mario, I know how important for you human rights are. In my homeland, Solidarność was born, a great movement for human rights, which was possible thanks to the lesson of John Paul II. For me, human rights will also be a priority. Graham, you spoke about the necessity of change in the European Parliament, of the need for reform, of the need to involve in the European project our citizens who are becoming more and more indifferent. I will make sure that together we will do everything we can to change this.
The EPP group was equally successful in securing several other important posts, including Vice-Presidents, Quaestors and Chairmen of parliamentary committees.
5 of the new Parliament's 14 Vice-Presidents are from the group. Ranked according to the number of votes each received, they were elected in the following order: Rodi Kratsa from Greece, Alejo Vidal-Quadras from Spain, Italian MEP Roberta Angelilli, Paul Schmidt from Hungary and Rainer Wieland from Germany. Ex-EPP member Edward Macmillan-Scott from the UK was also elected, running against the official candidate of his new group of European Conservatives and Reformists, which split from the EPP just before the European elections. Together with the President and Quaestors, the Vice-Presidents make up the Parliament's Bureau, the body responsible for its internal operations, including budgetary, administrative and staff matters. Jim Higgins from Ireland and Astrid Lulling from Luxembourg will join the Bureau as the group's Quaestors. Parliament also decided on its parliamentary committee chairs for the new term. Using a system of proportional representation based on the size of political groups in Parliament, the EPP group will chair 9 out of 20 committees and 1 of the 2 subcommittees. Gabriele Albertini, Carlo Casini and Elisabetta Gardini from Italy will chair the Foreign Affairs Committee, the largest in the Parliament, the Constitutional Affairs Committee and the Petitions Committee, respectively. Alain Lamassoure, former French European Affairs Minister, was elected chair of the Budgets Committee, which has considerable power over EU finances. Arnaud Danjean, also from France, will chair the Subcommittee on Security and Defence. Polish member and former Commissioner Danuta Hübner was elected chairwoman of the Regional Development Committee. Carmen Fraga from Spain will be chairwoman of the Fisheries Committee, while German members Doris Pack, Karl-Heiner Lehner and Herbert Reul took over respectively the committees on Culture and Education, Environment, Public Health and Food Safety, and Industry, Research and Energy.
Also on the agenda was the Swedish Presidency's 6-month programme. They'll face some important challenges, including the ongoing financial crisis, a new deal on climate change, and not least, ratification of the Lisbon Treaty.
Presenting the work programme of the Swedish EU Presidency to MEPs gathered in Strasbourg, Sweden's Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt focused on the main issues on his presidency's agenda. Naturally, the economic crisis and Europe's way out of it will define this presidency.
Vi måste återupprätta förtroendet för finansmarknaden.
We have to re-establish trust in the financial markets. We must swiftly get a working supervision in place to prevent the reoccurrence of similar crises. The Swedish Presidency's ambition is to unite the Council behind such measures before the end of the year, and we will need your help. Our citizens will not accept further use of tax money to rescue irresponsible financial institutions. We must end public deficits by a coordinated exit strategy and a gradual return to the rules of the Stability Pact.
EPP Group Chairman Joseph Daul encouraged the Swedish Presidency to move faster and further.
If we want recovery to come from Europe and not Asia, as widely predicted today, we must step up our action. At the end of the crisis, the winners will be those who have promoted innovation and training, those who have taken action.
The Swedish Prime Minister also took a firm stand for free trade and denounced European protectionism.
The economic crisis has brought forward ideas of increased protectionism. The WTO confirms the number of measures limiting trade has risen during the past 3 months. That is why I welcome the L'Aquila Agreement to relaunch the Doha round, to make sure the world's nations return to free trade-friendly policies we know we will all benefit from in the long run.
Leading the European Union ahead of December's climate meeting in Copenhagen, Fredrik Reinfeldt described how the world must go from the Kyoto Agreement's coalition of volunteers to responsibility for all. Europe must be united, he said, but Europe alone cannot fight climate change.
Men det räcker inte.
This is not enough. We must have a broader answer as to how to do it. It is not enough to limit emissions in those countries which willingly reduce their emissions, when those countries together are responsible for only 30% of all emissions. Neither are solutions enough, which are based on reductions only in the most industrialized nations. Even if the so-called Annex I countries would reduce their emissions to zero, the fast-growing emissions in developing countries would breach the 2-degree target. We need to discuss financing of investments in developing countries. We need to secure transfer of technology. And we must make sure developing countries also make commitments to cut emissions.
It appears likely the Swedish Presidency will get a chance to conclude the ratification process of the Lisbon Treaty. Fredrik Reinfeldt underlined the treaty's importance.
The treaty will make the European Union more democratic, more transparent, more efficient and more influential in the international arena. Most importantly, with the Lisbon Treaty in place, European cooperation will move on from an inward-looking phase. It is time for the EU to go forward.
A heavy schedule ahead for the first 6 months of this new Parliament, as you can see there. We look forward to bringing you a progress update from the next plenary session of the European Parliament here in Strasbourg in September, when there will be a debate on José Manuel Barroso's candidacy for the post of Commission President. To keep up to date in the meantime, visit eppgroup.eu. We'd like to leave you there with some images from the plenary session, where with the help of an interpreter, Hungarian EPP member Adam Kosa made history by making the first speech in sign language to plead for respect of minority languages.
Európai polgárnak.